The Nintendo GameCube is one of my favorite systems of all time. That's why this list was incredibly difficult to put together. Nintendo's little purple box might have not been the biggest sales success, but the games on the platform were absolutely some of the best times that I've ever had in gaming. Now, in this video, I'll be breaking down my own top 25 favorite games from Nintendo's 6th generation system. And remember, this isn't a objectively best list or anything like that. It's simply my top 25. So please remember to drop a comment down below what your favorite Nintendo GameCube games are. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into the list here, starting out at number 25, and that is Animal Crossing. Now, Animal Crossing was a precursor. This was the first time that anybody got a chance to even play anything like this. Truly a revolutionary type of game for the GameCube with the internal clock and with the events and the seasons. There hadn't really been anything that I've played ever like this. They had the demos that you can play in the house, all this different stuff that you can do. And while I wasn't crazy about it, the ideas and innovation, I knew going forward that this was going to be a thing, and it got me playing this type of game, which I never played these type of games back in the day for anything more than like an hour or two, like a Harvest Moon or these type of simulation type of games. And Animal Crossing was the first time that I saw true potential in that. So it essentially makes my top 25 due to sheer innovation alone, and how I could see, okay, if they actually add some more stuff and do some different things, I could see myself getting more into this. But I felt that Animal Crossing was an awesome title for when it released back in the early 2000s. So that's why Animal Crossing makes the number 25 on my list. Coming in at number 24, NFL Street Volume 2. Now, I'm telling you, man, I'm a big NFL fan, and NFL Street Volume 2 was the hotness when it came out. It was like the Street series that we've seen for NBA, but it was with your favorite NFL players. You can do different type of tricks, you can run off the wall, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff in here. You're playing in various different clothes, you're beating people up. It was like Blitz, but then like a new take on Blitz, where it was more urban and more, I would say, in the street, actually, right? So I loved NFL Street for that. Had some great game modes, had fun gameplay, smooth 60 frames per second. I don't know what EA is doing, the EA big label just going kaput, going the way of the dodo, but they need to bring back NFL Street. They need to bring it back because this game is so fun. You can even go back and play it right now on the GameCube and have a blast with your friends playing multiplayer. And I know I played so much NFL Street back in the day, it had to make it into my top 25 in at number 24. Next up at number 23, Super Mario Sunshine. And there were a number of games that I was contemplating over Super Mario Sunshine. I don't necessarily love it as much as other people do, especially speedrunners and things like that. But I still feel Super Mario Sunshine did what it needed to do. It showed that the GameCube can make a really impressive 3D platformer with some very good ideas. There's some cool stuff in here with FLUDD and with the open-ended design and the different levels and everything that you do in the game. It's super cool in that way. Now, the controls may be a little bit hard to get used to at first, but once you actually lock things down, Super Mario Sunshine is a ton of fun and a very different style of 3D platformer that really hasn't been replicated too much to this day. There are other games that try to copy some of the elements from Super Mario Sunshine, but I don't think there's any other game that's actually done it quite as good as Super Mario Sunshine, and graphically looked awesome. The water effects and everything looked super clean and nice. So for me, Super Mario Sunshine, fantastic Mario game, but not necessarily like my favorite 3D Mario or anything like that. But I still feel that it was an awesome adventure and a ton of fun. So Super Mario Sunshine makes number 23 on my list. Next up at number 22, X-Men Legends 2. Before we had Marvel Ultimate Alliance, there was X-Men and X-Men Legends 2. And X-Men Legends 2 is so cool. You would team up with all your favorite mutants from back in the day and really just come together and play at your buddies' houses. I remember playing this game so much at my place, at my friends' houses. You could just pick wherever you wanted. You go through, level up. It was awesome. A multiplayer cooperative RPG with a really cool and I would say darker than expected storyline with a lot of stuff happening. Fantastic pinpoint controls, great graphics, good music, good sound effects. X-Men Legends 2 was awesome. And I don't know why they don't bring back X-Men Legends. What is going on here that we can't get a new X-Men Legends game? X-Men Legends 3? Can I get some of that? I think that would be super cool to bring back. No hate on Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but if they really focused in on a number of mutants with X-Men Legends 3 and said, hey, we're going to really flesh out the game instead of adding 5 billion different ones, I think you can create a much better game. And I think that's some of the reasons why X-Men Legends 2 is so beloved by the community that likes this type of cooperative multiplayer experience, isometric type of style, because they did so many cool things within the mutants that you can use. So X-Men Legends 2 makes the number 22 on my list. Coming in at number 21, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, which this game apparently is so good, they're like, heck, we gotta make sure that the remake is absolutely perfect because of the legacy and legend of Prince of Persia. Now, I liked the game back in the day. I thought it was awesome. And yes, it still holds up very well in my opinion. The graphics were great on the GameCube. The gameplay was a lot of fun. The action was good. The gimmick of the sands of time and rewinding if you make a mistake and all of that was right there in the early / mid 2000s. That was the thing back then. Bullet time and rewinding and all that type of stuff. So I loved it. It fit right in. And once again, even if you play it now, like, it's still a lot of fun. It's still super smooth. Gameplay's good. Story's good. I love Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and I can't wait to see this remake that they're doing, because apparently they feel that it needs to be the most pristine thing ever. Multiple times kind of rebooting it and sending it to different studios to make it. But yeah, I think it'll be worth it, especially if they channel the energy and channel the essence of what Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was originally on the GameCube, Xbox, PS2. I loved it on my GameCube, played it so many times, beat it a number of times, thought it was great. So it makes it in at number 21 on my list. But before we get into any more of these awesome GameCube games, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and click the notification bell to get my videos first. Thank you so much, and let's get right back into the lit GameCube games. Coming in at number 20 is Star Fox Adventures, a surprise, because when I first played this game, I didn't like it so much because I just wanted a new Star Fox game. I wanted a Star Fox 64 style graphics and intense gameplay and dogfights. So I was kind of like, not so much on this one. But later I played it, I beat it, then I played it again, and I'm like, wait a minute, this game is much better than what people thought it was back when it released. People were just shocked that they repurposed this Dino Planet or whatever the heck it was beforehand on the N64 or GameCube or whatever they did, and pretty much put a Star Fox skin over it. But it's still a great game. It's a lot of fun. I think that some of the ideas in there could absolutely be repurposed into a really cool modern Star Fox game if they wanted to do like an offshoot from what they did. Now, maybe that's not the best idea because people want a normal Star Fox game, but Star Fox Adventures is fun. It's got great frame rate, doesn't really skip a beat there. It's got cool upgrades. It's got great levels. Music is good too, and you get to use Fox, man. It's awesome there. So for me, Star Fox Adventures might be a little high for some other people, but I think it's just right on my own list. That's why it makes it number 20 on here. Next up at number 19, Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2. And there was nothing like back in the day where you have a multiplayer game that you can play with the homies, but as an RPG, because when you grew up back then, all you thought of with RPGs was single player. There was some multiplayer, but for the most part, if you weren't playing on PC, MMOs, or whatever the case was, RPGs were a single player experience. Now that changed a bit, Secret of Mana and other games, but you never really saw something like Phantasy Star Online that allowed you to have 4-player co-op on top of, if you had the GameCube network adapter and all that, you could go online and play. Now, I wasn't able to do that a lot, but I did get a chance to, and it was a mind-blowing experience. It was awesome. But just even playing co-op with someone right then and there, it's a cool experience and a lot of fun. A lot of different classes, a lot of stuff that you can do in the game. Phantasy Star Online, to me, was something that Sega did that was just so fun in the RPG sense, because they gave you options. In today's day, it's like online or bust. But back then, you had options. You could play single player, you can play co-op multiplayer on the same screen, no online. You could play online multiplayer with your friends if all that's set up. It was just great, and I think that's how games should be. So it reminded me of that and how much fun I've had. So I had to put Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2, in at number 19 on my list. Next up at number 18, Viewtiful Joe 2. The Beautiful Man is back, and maybe we'll see him a bit later as well. And Viewtiful Joe was the quintessential side-scrolling 6th generation beat-up for me. Viewtiful Joe 2 did everything that I wanted to see in a sequel for the most part. A couple things that weren't so good story-wise, but overall, silky smooth gameplay. You had great action on the screen. You had a lot of cool power-ups, everything that you would want in a side-scrolling action beat-em-up game. It really took that style and kind of made it its own flavor and everything. The art style, the animation, like in a movie and all of that. You have Viewtiful Joe. You have Joe's girlfriend in there as well. So to me, it was awesome. Loved the gameplay, loved the style, loved how silky smooth 60 frames it was, and I felt that Viewtiful Joe 2 was going to be a long-standing running franchise. I felt this was going to keep on going. I guess I was wrong there, but Viewtiful Joe 2 is more than good enough to make it as number 18 on my top 25 list. Coming in at number 17, F-Zero GX. Now, I'm not the biggest F-Zero fan, but even myself, I have to sit here and give F-Zero GX its flowers. It's super fast paced, it's 60 frames per second, it's blisteringly difficult at times, and it's everything that you would want to see in a hardcore futuristic racer that still to this day, you can pop in F-Zero GX and play and be like, wow, I'm blown away. Graphic-wise, gameplay-wise, content features, there are some things that I would have liked for them to do in the game, but in terms of the franchise of F-Zero, it pretty much did everything that I'd want to see and more compared to F-Zero X, which I played a ton of back on the Nintendo 64. But F-Zero GX was one of those games where the developers really paid attention to the details with the game, with the controls, the racing, everything felt pinpoint. When you got bodied, yeah, there was some like weird and unfair AI at times, but you had plenty of tools as well. You really need to learn how to race in the game. So F-Zero GX makes it to number 17 on my list. Coming in at number 16, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. And I know there's issues compared to the original. I get it, in inconsistencies, certain things with the first person mode and having the engine from Metal Gear Solid 2. I get that, but when I played it, I loved it and I beat it multiple times. I thought the graphic upgrade was insane for the time. Going from PS1 to the GameCube, that was such a huge jump graphically. Music-wise, it was solid as well. I thought that the cutscenes were just mind-blowing too. To me, it was a real narrative type of Metal Gear experience that Nintendo fans at that time never got a chance to experience in the modern age. They had the old school ones, but in the modern age, never got a chance to experience that. So seeing that on the GameCube was cool. And at the time that it released, games were $50. They released this as a complete remake for $40 at most places. So it was a great value. There's replay value in the game as well. So I was blown away, man. I went there and bought it day one. I still have that same copy that I got all those years ago, decades ago at this point. So for me, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes was a great experience, even with some of the flaws compared to the original, and that's why it makes it in at number 16 on my list. Coming in at number 15, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the Dark Souls version of Metroid Prime. Yeah, this game was crazy. I love the fact that they had the two different worlds, and the dark world, that's where you have the dark energy, and it's more difficult. You have the little biomes that you have to get in and out of to be safe. And the light world, bit easier, bit different to navigate in terms of how you do things, light energy. It was a cool dynamic, and they patched up quite a number of things that was an issue in the original Metroid Prime. Now, not enough to maybe say that it was better than the original because of the impact, but I still feel that Metroid Prime 2 was just as smooth. Gameplay was really fun, had the 60 frames, which is a normal consistency with the GameCube. The 60 frames, the input response timing on the shooting, and just the fact that it was just so intricate with the map detail and the layout and the bosses made Metroid Prime 2 a must-have for so many GameCube gamers back then. And for myself, all the core gamers that are looking for a challenge, absolutely, you had to pick up Metroid Prime 2. And Samus was Samus. It's still the same awesome retro studios that's making that game. So Metroid Prime 2 Echoes makes it in at number 15 on my list. Coming in at number 14, Soul Calibur 2 with Link as a guest character. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure how many people would have loved this game or picked it up if Link wasn't in there. Now, I played the original Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast, so I would have picked up the game regardless because Soul Calibur was a big deal. I'm a Maxi guy. I like to use those nunchakus. But yeah, it was a big deal back then. But when Soul Calibur 2 came out and every single system had its own unique exclusive character, Xbox had Spawn, PlayStation had the Tekken guy Hayachi, and then GameCube had Link. And by far, Link was the coolest character overall because it's freaking Link, man. It's the legendary hero that had already at that time been around for a long time, decades plus. So Link was already legendary at that point. So for me, I had to pick up the GameCube version, and it was great. He had his moveset and everything, but the game itself, Soul Calibur 2, somehow was a good step above Soul Calibur 1, which is, I think, the highest rated Dreamcast game, or one of the highest rated Dreamcast games, one of the highest rated games ever. So for me, that was just awesome. They improved upon everything. They had the modes in there, single player, you play multiplayer with your friends. But I will tell you guys a tragic story. What happened with this game with me, real quick. Me and my brother, we played 50 games and he beat me all 50 times, and I never played it after that. I was so angry. I felt like breaking the game. I remember returning it, but then buying it back years and years and years later. But yeah, I remember returning it and just getting rid of it and being so angry that he beat me 50 to nothing. It just crushed my will. But overall, I'm not holding it against it. It's still one of the best, and that's why it's in at number 14 on the list. Coming in at number 13 is a surprising one for many of you guys probably, Madden 2005. Now, there's a lot of great sports games on the GameCube. I could have picked NFL 2K3. I could have picked any one of the Maddens. Madden 2003. There's just so many great sports games. I didn't want to fill this whole list full of it. Plus, I played a lot of them on the PlayStation 2 due to online play. But I did play Madden 05 on the Nintendo GameCube and the PlayStation 2. I had both of them, and the GameCube version was great. It was definitely a good version of the game, and Madden 2005 to me was the pinnacle of Madden sports gameplay. It's not like what you see in today's day, guys. Please don't relate it to today's lazy efforts or lazier efforts on Madden. Madden 2005 had the full package. You have the franchise mode, you have the concession stuff that you can do, you have the free agents, you have the create the teams, you have the importing of the draft classes from the NCAA game. You have pretty much everything for the most part, from what I remember. There was a ton of features. Even if I'm wrong on some of them, there was so many features in this game. It was awesome to play. GameCube was great having that. Didn't have the online play, which was unfortunate because Xbox and PlayStation did have it, so I had another copy there. But still, we have to give props to Madden 2005. They had a bunch of new animations for gang tackles and different things like that. Also have to make sure that I mention the defensive playmaker that really helped balance out the overall game. Offense was a bit too strong in 2004 for Madden, but in Madden 05, it balanced it out with the defensive playmaker being able to adjust manually and do different schemes and coverages on the fly to counteract the strong offensive playmaker out there. So it created a well-balanced football game that just felt like a dream to play back then, with all of the features that make for a cohesive type of football game and none of the nickel and diming that you see in today's day with Madden and Ultimate Team. So Madden was the pinnacle. That and NFL 2K5, which wasn't on the GameCube, but both of those games that year were absolute bangers, and they were cheaper too. They lowered the price. I think it was like $40 or $30. I know they lowered the price because NFL 2K5 was $20. So I know they lowered it a bit and didn't have it at $50. So that's what competition does. And after that, EA got so scared they bought the exclusive license. So that sucks. But we can all go back and reminisce over the good times. So Madden 2005 makes it to number 13 on my list. Coming in at number 12, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Some of you guys have experienced it for the first time on the Nintendo Switch, but the GameCube version does have a nice advantage over the most current version, and that is the silky smooth 60 frames per second. But outside of that, pretty much the same game for the most part, and it's still really good. It holds up. That's why Nintendo remade the game. It holds up incredibly well. The gameplay is super fun. You have the active adaptive type of system to where you have to time your button presses for offense and defense. You've got a very quirky but fun story to go through, cool, colorful worlds as well, and just great gameplay that ties everything together with the badge system in the game. So I absolutely loved my time with Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door on the Nintendo Switch, but the GameCube can almost feel a little bit different because of that 60 frames. It does take a little bit of time, depending on which version you're coming from, to adjust. But I still feel that the GameCube version is relevant because of that, and it's still the same great game, although there are some quality of life features that are absolutely better on the Nintendo Switch. The GameCube version is still awesome. It was still one of the best RPG experiences on the GameCube, so I had to put it in at number 12 on my list. Coming in at number 11, NBA Street Volume 2, another EA big game that is done at this point, and EA's silly for that, but this is by far the best sports game that I've ever played. If you take all the different sports games, to me, NBA Street Volume 2, once again, 60 frames per second, has the athletes. You got Michael Jordan in the game. You've got a bunch of made-up characters that are super cool, bona fide. You got Stretch in there, Dr. J. You've got just so much good stuff. The soundtrack was awesome. Oh my goodness, we would rock to the soundtrack all the time. I remember taking it to football camp with me, and all we did was play NBA Street Volume 2 at football camp for American football. We were playing, people weren't playing Madden and other stuff, they were playing NBA Street Volume 2. The different tricks that you can do, the modes in the game, the features, it still has more features than games that come out in today's day for sports titles. That's how good NBA Street Volume 2 is. Gameplay silky smooth and fun, and I just enjoy it, and I wish EA would bring it back, but for now, you can still go back and play it. It's still awesome to go back and play on your GameCube, Xbox, PS2. So NBA Street Volume 2, go out there and check it out. It's the best sports game of all time, in my opinion, and it makes the number 11 on my list. All right, guys, we are in the top 10. In at number 10, Resident Evil, the original remake for the Nintendo GameCube. And yeah, this was mind-blowing when I played it back in the day. Like, I was looking at this game from a graphics perspective and like, oh my goodness, this is like the best that I've ever seen. It felt like that original Resident Evil, and they just made it better in all aspects of the game. One of the best remakes that I've ever played. Even still to this day, you can pop in that GameCube game, and that's a running theme with the GameCube. You can pop in the original game, not even Dolphin or not even anything else, but the original game, and play and be like, oh yeah, this still feels good to play. Even with those tank controls, it still looks good. The geometry, the dimensions, everything that they did in the game is still awesome, and the original story holds up. The original gameplay holds up. Now, not for everybody that likes to run and shoot and all that, but if you're into survival horror games, this game is still, I would say, one of the top, if not the best out there for pure survival horror games. So for me, Resident Evil, the original remake, phenomenal game, great gameplay, so much replay value, so much fun to play, looks great as well, makes it in at number 10 on my list. Coming in at number 9, Metroid Prime. Now, you guys know Metroid Prime Remastered came out. Once again, still holds up because it's that original game and they just made it look a bit better, but everything is still there from the original. And when I played this game back then, when I saw the scans in the Game Pro magazine or Game Informer or wherever I got back then, I think it was Game Informer, I was blown away by how it looked. But the new style of Samus going into the first person in the adventure, people were very skeptical. I was skeptical about this, but they shut us all up in an instant. When the previews came out, when the reviews came out, and all of the 10 out of 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 10 scores were racking up to be the best reviewed GameCube game of all time and the best selling Metroid game before Metroid Dread came out, we all knew this was going to be a thing. This was going to be huge for the industry, and it was. Metroid Prime is just one of those games that really sticks with you even after you play it. Yeah, there's some flaws, there's some things here and there, but if you put yourself in the mindset back in 2002 or so, and you're playing through that game, it was really just that next gen quote unquote experience that nobody else was offering. And even if you look at it, I mean, nobody really still offers in a sense right now. You got a lot of Metroidvania style games, Metroid games, but Metroid Prime is still this unique entity. And that's why even still at this point, it reviews better than so many other games that are newer and with generations of knowledge afterwards to replicate it, still can't quite do it like Metroid Prime did it. So Metroid Prime, with its fantastic controls, smooth gameplay, structure, and everything that added to the Metroid experience as an innovation point for the series, makes it number 9 on my list. Coming in at number 8, Viewtiful Joe, the original. Now, we talked about Viewtiful Joe 2, but Viewtiful Joe 1 to me was perfection. The shock of playing what Clover Studios, Hideki Kamiya had for us. Everything just came together at the right moment for the Viewtiful Joe game as a brand new IP on the GameCube, exclusive at first. It blew me away. Once again, 60 frames per second, smooth gameplay, great graphics, cool power-ups, fast forwarding time, slowing down, bullet time, dodging. It had all of the cool 2000s and 90s gameplay all mixed into one in a perfect GameCube package for you to play. You had to have just been there when this game came out, and it was just pandemonium when it came to core GameCube players out there giving it a shot. I loved it, and it did well enough when it came to sales to actually get a sequel. So people went out there and supported it at first. So I love Viewtiful Joe. I think it's such a great franchise, and I'd love to see it come back in some way, shape, or form. I think a Viewtiful Joe 1 and 2 HD remastered type of thing would be awesome and would sell great on Nintendo platforms, on any platforms, but definitely Nintendo platforms. That's where people really remember Viewtiful Joe. So if you haven't played it, check it out. You will really enjoy it. It holds up super well. Once again, it's old school beat 'em ups, Final Fight, all that type of stuff mixed in with some of the stuff like Bayonetta and all of that. It's crazy how this game is, but it really is that good. And that's why Viewtiful Joe made it to number 8 on my list. Coming in at number 7, Mario Kart Double Dash. Yeah, we've got to get Mario Kart Double Dash in here. I love this game so much. I think that it was one of the coolest concepts and ideas in the early mid 2000s. They're like, okay, a new Mario Kart game's coming out, but wait, there's 2 people on a cart, which we never had before. We had a couple Mario Kart games before that, and it was all just singular cart. But then they also added, oh, you got specials as well. So each pair has a special that they can do. Now, some of them were kind of busted and broken in terms of what they can do, but overall, it was still super fun to mix and match and play. And Mario Kart Double Dash has one of the greatest things, and I feel that to this day, this is the single most fun thing that I've ever experienced in a Mario Kart game. And it's all about fun. To me, this is the single most out of Mario Kart 8, all the new Mario Karts, all of them. You can take all of those games. Mario Kart Double Dash had this feature to where you can hook it up like LAN, like old school Halo, right? Hook it up old school Halo with the GameCube adapters, where me and my homies, we tracked down all these different GameCube adapters, which even at that time, they were kind of scarce to get one of those because nobody was buying them because Nintendo didn't really do online play. We hooked it all up, put it together with the router, and played 8 players, 2 people per a cart LAN multiplayer. And I'm telling you, we played that all night, and I felt like, yo, this is the greatest thing that I've ever played. Like when it comes to Mario Kart, it was so much fun. And I know you can't necessarily do that, or most people didn't do that, but it was super cool. And to me, still the most fun that I've ever had, being able to strategize and mix and match and switch back and forth on the carts. It was just sublime. It was so good. Mario Kart Double Dash, even by itself, if you're not doing that, is still incredible. So that's exactly why, with all the cool stuff that they added in, the multiplayer, the stages were great. It was a complete awesome Mario Kart game that was super fast and fun to play, and it makes it to number 7 on my list. Coming in at number 6, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. People wanted Ocarina of Time, but just on the GameCube, but a new game, and that's exactly what you got when it came to this style. Man, people went nuts for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess back then, and I went nuts as well. because I love this game. Now, I played it on the Wii, but I also played it on the GameCube. I played on the GameCube afterwards, so maybe it lessened my impact in terms of how I felt about it. But then again, I played it again on the Wii U, so it doesn't really matter. The original GameCube version is still one of the better versions of the game. It's the unique original version that they were building it for its own base. That's where it's at. There might be other versions that do other things, and that's awesome. Everybody has their opinions on what version is the best, but for me, the GameCube version is still awesome. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess with the master skills, with the cool top battle that you had one time there. That was super cool. The pit that you have to go in there and fight through so many different battles. The Twilight Princess with Midna. The Wolf Link stuff was super cool. People were kind of hating on that. Not me. I love the Wolf Link stuff. So I love so many aspects of this game. It's really good. Music's great as well. Hyrule Field necessarily not the most impressive one out of all the Zelda games, but still a very fun way to traverse throughout the land as well. And I really enjoyed my time with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And I still feel that it's one of the better Legend of Zelda games. And that's why it makes it to number 6 on my list. All right, guys, we are in the top 5. Let's get into it. At number 5, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. This is when I really started playing Fire Emblem for real, for real. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, my man Ike, he's out here with the muscles, the big sword, smashing people to smithereens, but in a very cruel world. But the gameplay, the story, the content in here still might not be matched. If you look at it blow for blow, story bit for story bit, I'm telling you, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is just as good as any other strategy RPG out there. And I loved what they did with the story, the gameplay, and the difficulty. That's what makes Fire Emblem Fire Emblem. Before there was any type of casual mode to where, oh, okay, if my unit dies, it's okay, they can come back, whatever the case is. Nope. They're gone in this one. And I loved that back then. I didn't love it at first, but then I learned to love it. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is still a fantastic strategy RPG, one of the best. You can go back and play it right now at this point on the GameCube and have a ton of fun. We need a remaster, we need a remake, we need something. One of these days, Intelligent Systems and Nintendo will get to it. But for right now, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance makes it number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4, Skies of Arcadia Legends, one of the greatest RPGs of all time, and still a game that people would love to see come back. Skies of Arcadia Legends is an enhanced port of the Dreamcast game with added in new bosses, quality of life features, and other things that was not in the original. And I love that because I did play Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast, but Skies of Arcadia Legends is even better and still has one of the best flows and vibes, and it teaches you so much stuff. The story in the game, it starts up and it wraps up. Now, there are some ties that say, okay, maybe there's like a sequel that they can do, and apparently they were working on one, but pretty much you learn what happens with all the characters, but it teaches you so much about certain ways, about certain things in life, people being selfless or people being selfish, people that will do things based on the power of their convictions and not. The story takes so many twists and turns and brings you to so many different areas and has you reflecting on real life and stuff that's happened. And that's what I loved about Skies of Arcadia, on top of the cool dynamic ship battles that you had, the on-ground battles that not necessarily were the most complex, but were still fun to get through, and you have cool superpower moves in there and everything. So for me, Skies of Arcadia is still one of the goated RPGs out there. I had to put it in this high at number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. This was my favorite Zelda game of all time before we got The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and for good reason. I think that The Wind Waker, to me, really took the Legend of Zelda design that we all know and love, but even at that point for me was getting a little bit stale, and added a whole new Pirates of the Caribbean wrinkle to it. At that time, Pirates of the Caribbean was big, and just pirates, boats, ships were big. The 90s, 2000s, it was just a thing, and Nintendo added their own spin, but with a completely new and cel-shaded unique art style that people went nuts about at first. People did not like that Link looked like that. They wanted something that was more realistic, like Twilight Princess. But for me, I was like, wait a minute, let's wait and see. Let's see what's going on here. And when I played the game, it was magical. From when I first picked up the sword and started slashing people up in that forest, and then to go from there to the base and having to sneak around, being able to pick up enemies' weapons. There were a lot of innovations that you see in The Legend of Zelda Zelda at this point that happened with The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, and I love it for that. But even just the story, the sailing, the different things that you can do, the mini games, Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker to me is just a beautiful game. The way that you manipulate the wind, the music in the game with the Wind Waker, being able to kind of just do the different notes, I felt that was awesome. I felt that it was more cool than an ocarina for some reason, and I loved it. So that was awesome. But the game itself, the graphical style and everything, it was just an incredible experience when I played it. So smooth and so much fun to play. So for me, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker is my favorite classic Zelda game and makes it in at number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2, Super Smash Bros. Melee. This was the game that everybody that got a GameCube at the beginning wanted the GameCube for. Masahiro Sakurai nearly killed himself for us to be able to play Smash Brothers not so long after the GameCube came out. And it was pretty much a perfect game for the most part. Fans to this day are still playing Super Smash Bros. Melee competitively and for fun. It had a bunch of different modes. It had a bunch of new characters added in, a ton of depth within the wave dashing and different advanced techniques that you can do. You can play it casually. You can play it for hardcore. You can play it for tournament wise. Super Smash Bros. Melee, with its items and its stages and the music, it's still, to me, one of the best crossovers, I would say, right up there with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate when it comes to the full package, when it comes to the gameplay, how you manipulate, how you play, and being able to play it casually and being able to play it hardcore. Smash Bros. Melee is right up there with some of the best. And for me, when I was playing it back then, I thought the coolest thing was obviously the look of it. I felt that it looked so good on the GameCube. It was such a huge step above what we saw with the N64 and the animations and how they kind of just changed everything. The characters had more personality. Yes, there were some clones and all that, but even in the N64 version, a lot of people have the same type of kicks and moves, but not in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like Fox and Mario, like in Smash 64, had like the same type of kicks and stuff. Not in this one. So they changed so much. I felt that being able to transform into Sheik and Zelda, that was a super innovative idea that I'm sure other fighting games did at some point, but never did we see that in this type of platform fighting game. So that was awesome too, being able to switch back and forth and have the full moveset that was completely different. There were so many cool things in this game. And having Dr. Mario, I get that it's a, clone character or anything like that, Echo, whatever you want to call it, but still, to me, having Dr. Mario, because Dr. Mario was such a huge part of back in the day, the NES and like the music and everything. So Dr. Mario there was super cool. So having Dr. Mario in with all the other characters that they added in as well, Mewtwo, the Pokemon and everything, oh man, it was just a great time. But controls wise, gameplay wise, Super Smash Bros. Melee is second to none overall. Outside of the fact that you can't turn off tap jump. I wish that you can turn that off and being able to do it like just from like a button press. But outside of that, everything else is so good in the game when it comes to controls and all of that. Super Smash Bros. Melee is legendary. It's still being played at a high level and by a lot of people today. So that's the reason why Smash Bros. Melee makes the number 2 on my list. All right, and coming in at number 1, you guys know what it is. Resident Evil 4. Man, to me, this was what gaming was or is about when it came out. This is what I loved. When I first picked up that game from GameStop, went home, put it in, started playing, it was a revolution with the behind the back third person type of view. It brought some of the scary atmosphere that you know and love from Resident Evil, but it put in a whole new perspective and gameplay that was visceral, that was up close, that was brutal. Resident Evil 4 to me was a revolution in gaming, and I think one of the reasons why we got a lot of these other third-person shooters in the 7th generation, the Uncharted's, the Gears of Wars, I think that perspective and what Resident Evil 4 did, just splatting people, the red dot sight, the pistol, the different weapons, the replay value, what Resident Evil 4 brought to the table was unlike anything else the industry had seen, unlike anything else the GameCube had seen. So it was a blast to play through, and I love the fact that it was all game. It was a real gamer's game. The voice acting, the graphics, the gameplay, the controls, the smoothness, the replay value, playing it again. You got the professional mode, the different type of cheats that you can get, the unlimited ammos, the weapons. it was kind of like a light RPG. Those elements to me were one of the best things. Being able to collect money, being able to buy and sell, and then upgrade your guns. That to me really set it apart from many other shooters out there, to where, yeah, you're just shooting and it's great. Maybe you get an upgrade or two here and there. Heck, even some games like Uncharted, there's 0 upgrades within the single player game. But Resident Evil did something that not a lot of other games did at that time in 2004 to 2005 when it was coming out. So it was just one of those things to where when you saw old school Resident Evil, you said, man, I wish it was a little bit, better with the shooting mechanics and things like that. Because before, you just shot in like a radial area, but this one you actually aimed and shot, and it just brought about a whole new gameplay perspective and a revolution to me. At least there isn't many things that I felt Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube could do better at that time. People talked about moving and shooting, but it wasn't about that. You were just so fascinated with the new perspective and aiming and lining up your shots. But I felt that not being able to move and shoot at the same time brought the tension, because you really had to get into position and really time your shots. So it was an added layer of difficulty to the classic Resident Evil. So it retained what was awesome about old school Resident Evil and that tension and kind of being scary based on where you were, but then also added in a whole new level of new to it, a perspective and shooting and better gameplay when it came to the combat in the game overall. So Resident Evil 4, still to me, one of the greatest games of all time. If I put a top 25 list of all time games, which I will do at some point, or top 50 or top 100, Resident Evil is going to be at the top of the list. And it's absolutely my #1 GameCube game of all time in my top 25. So what are your best GameCube games? What do you have fond memories of? What do you feel is the best that the GameCube offered? First party, third party, all of that. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you are someone new. Click that notification bell and check out our other top 25 videos right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.